And then now it's like, okay, I live in Korea. Like Korea is my home. And so it was just more of like creating that mindset that like wherever you like settle down, like that's where you can feel safe. That's where you can be like in your element. Actual Wonju. I was like, put me in the city, please.
Okay.
And so
You went to Wonju?
yeah,
Okay.
I moved to Wonju and did that for a year. And like right before my year had ended, I actually met my now husband. And so we met like
Congratulations. Sorry, I know.
And then his parents were like zero hesitation because his dad is just very, I feel like, open-minded, and then his mom was even.
Hey guys, it's me, Keeds, Kedanator, Kedatron, Keeds and Crates. I got the Keeds, whatever you want to call me. That is me. You already know who I am, so I'm gonna shut up now, and I'm gonna allow my beautiful guest to introduce herself. Lexi, would you mind introducing yourself to the Sobe fam?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Lexi. I'm from California and literally there my whole life until I turned 18. And so that's like, besides that, all I know. And then as soon as I finished, I had like that whole like run away from home syndrome. So for college, I immediately went as far as I thought I could go, which was New York. And so
that is pretty far.
Yeah, so I did all of college in New York, and that was 5 years, like bachelor's plus master's. And then after that, I ran even further, and here we are.
To Korea.
Yeah.
Why did you feel you had to run? I mean, you don't have to go into full depth of like my family history, but like, why did you feel you had to leave that far?
I think it was just like always wanting to like prove my independence. Like, I think there's just many factors in my life that made me feel like I wasn't like really seen for like the effort I was putting into things. Like things weren't coming easy to me. I was trying my best. And so it's like for people not to take away from like what I was able to succeed with at that point, I just felt like, well, if I'm here, you can't say that I didn't do it by myself because I am by myself.
You had to shut like the negativity out.
Exactly. And so like with New York, like going to New York, like paying for school, I did it all. Like I was just like, I wanted this, and so I did it. With Korea, I wanted to come here, so I did it. I just really wanted to like take ownership of my choices and be like in it for myself.
I love that. I love that you were like, listen, this is not working for me. I'm going to go to New York. And honestly, I know a lot of people like to say like, oh, Seoul is the, what is it? Seoul is the New York of Korea. And it's not. It's very different. New York is very different than Korea.
So.
But New York is very hard. Like the fact that you moved so far, New York is not a city that like you can go there and like just coast through. Like New York is very much like you got to go there with a mindset. So the fact that you made it by yourself in New York, college, you know, do you think that prepared you to be like, oh, Korea, yes, it's a completely different country, but I lived in New York.
I think it was more so like I knew I could make my home anywhere. Like that was more the feeling like home isn't where I'm from, it's where I am. And so I just kind of like, this is my home now. So for those 5 years, I lived in New York. I am from New York. And then now it's like, okay, I live in Korea. Like Korea is my home. And so it was just more of like creating that mindset that like wherever you like settle down, like that's where you can feel safe. That's where you can be like in your element.
I love that. I love that you have that. I have a very similar mindset. Like I know people like, how can you just move to DC and go to Florida? I'm like, because like it's where I am. I don't want to just stay in one place.
Exactly.
You know? Like the world is too big for me to just be like, oh, I'm too scared to do that.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate people that are like, you know what? I'm gonna go. I may not know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm gonna go and figure it out. Right?
Yeah.
Why did you come to Korea? Is my question.
Okay. It like started off with like general interest. But like a friend of mine, right when we were graduating, she told me she was going to Russia for a year. And I was like, oh my God, like that seems so cool. Like, why can't I do something like that? And so I was already like low key super interested in Korea. So I was just like, what can I do to do something similar? So I just kind of found my method, and then I just committed to it for my whole last year of college and was like, this is what I'm prepping for. This is what I'm going to do. And then I did it.
Wow, what was the method that you're talking about?
Initially it was Fulbright. Like
Fulbright.
Yeah,
okay.
I did.
The second time I heard about Fulbright.
Really? Yeah. It's like, cause it's like such a resume popper. Like you say, I'm a Fulbright scholar, and so I tried that method, but I didn't make it past like the first round. So once I got rejected from Fulbright, I immediately started applying to Epic, and so I initially came through Epic.
Okay, so I like that something didn't work and then you were like, all right, no, but this is my goal, so I'm gonna get there.
Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a backup plan and a backup plan. It was like if I failed Epic, then I was going to apply to a Hagwon. So I just like, I had the prioritized list of how I wanted to come. So I was depressed for like a good 20 minutes that day. And then I was like, okay, what's next?
Let's keep it moving.
Let's keep going.
So where were you placed in Epic?
Okay, so it wasn't that bad. Like, it wasn't that bad, but it was kind of that bad. So so I was placed in Gangwon-do, which didn't like scare me. Like, I was so like, I want to learn about Korea. Like, I don't care if I'm at a little tiki hut in the mountain. Like, it's cool.
Till you get there.
Yeah. And so like I got placed in Gangwon-do and
Yeah.
I was like, this is fine. And so I was doing my research on all the different placements and the possibilities, and I just kind of like came to terms with it. And then when I got here, I found out I was placed in Wonju, which was like,
Oh, I know where that is.
yeah, in Gangwon-do, that's like one of the top tier choices you could get. There's like Chuncheon, Gangneung, Wonju, and like what's the other one? Like Donghae or Yangyang or something. But so I was hyped. I was like, I'm in Wonju. This is like the largest city in the province.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so there's like Wonju, and then there's like this outer circle that is called a Wonju placement, but you're not in Wonju. So I was actually in a place called Munmak, which is like on the outskirts. Like if you take the city bus, it takes an hour to get into like the city center. And not only that, but I was the only teacher there. So like
At the school? What do you mean?
like in Munmak.
Oh,
So in this like
okay.
hour
It's just a
isolated little town, like there was nobody to like, you know how you meet up with the other teachers and like you get to know the other foreigners. For me to do that, I have to travel an hour.
Wow.
So even when like the Wonju city had the welcome dinner for me, I couldn't even go because my classes finished too late for me to get to it. And I was the only new incoming teacher of that intake. So it was like, if I'm not at the welcome dinner, who are you welcoming?
Yeah.
And so it was just like literally isolation.
Yeah.
I couldn't get to know anybody.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of like chilling in the boondocks like by myself.
Literally.
Yeah.
Okay, well what was that year like then?
It was rough because like the first part, so it's like August 2019 to like December, I'm just like adjusting. I was also given 5 schools, so my schedule was crazy. And it wasn't like one day, one school. It was like I could go up to 3 different schools in a single day. So like before lunch, one school, after school, or after lunch, another school. After school is finished, another school. And so I was literally running across town, like going crazy, trying to get to these schools, prepare all the lessons. I lost so much weight because I wasn't really eating and I was just
no time.
running.
You're always
I was on the
hunt.
go. Yeah. And so I was just
That's
hectic. I was like stressed out. I was lonely. I was like not homesick, but I was just like people sick.
Deprived?
Like I miss people. Yeah. And so it was just like really hard. Like I was basically living for the weekend because every weekend would come and I would go straight to Seoul because I was just like, this is the only place I can like go meet people. And it was an hour to Seoul or an hour into Wonju. So what do you think I chose?
Yeah.
So every weekend I was going to Seoul, and that's what kind of kept me going for that first half.
Yeah.
And then boom, 2020, Corona. And so Corona comes and everything just kind of shut down. So then I was trapped in Munmak. Like the school year got postponed, I think 2 months. So I was just literally in my apartment from I think like January until maybe April by myself in Munmak.
Yeah.
And so that was also rough, but I like started like broadcasting online and started meeting people like via apps so I could at least talk to people that way. So that kind of saved me. And then I was just waiting for life to pick up, and it slowly did. The school year finally got started, and then eventually my contract came to an end, so I transferred out of Munmak.
Yeah, you gotta get out of the Moonwalk. I don't even know where that. And the funny, I lived in Gangneung 2018 to 2019, and my friend lived in Wonju, so I know all the areas you talk. I've never heard Moonwalk.
Because why would you go there?
I have never like anytime we're like, oh, let's go around the city, and we've never even like thought about that one.
The only time you might have seen it and you didn't know is like if you take the Kosok bus from Wonju, it like drives for like 30 minutes and it stops and some more people get on the bus and then it continues on to Seoul. That teeny little stop is Munmak.
That's stuff that
because
I've
it's
never,
like on the way
never
out.
paid attention to if I ever drove faster.
Exactly. I was one of those people always getting on at that little stop.
People
Like,
are like, where
okay,
is this little hut town?
where are we? Why are we stopping here? Yeah, that was me.
And there's like 4 other people like, let's go,
Let's
get us
go.
some stuff. And I'm sorry that happened. That you were.
Yeah.
That's a tough year because I didn't like Gangneung, even though it's a bigger city. Now that you're saying what you went through, and I think of like my experience, I am sorry.
It's all good.
Because I did have teachers there, and there weren't many foreigners, but at least I had 2 teachers at the school.
Right.
So that experience, I don't know how I would be able to
Wild.
work through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you left that school, moved to another school. Are you now still teaching?
No, I'm
Okay.
not. So for the second year, I moved I transferred into actual Wonju. I was like,
Okay.
put me in the city, please.
Okay.
And so
You went to Wonju?
yeah,
Okay.
I moved to Wonju and did that for a year. And like right before my year had ended,
Yeah.
I actually met my now husband. And so we met like
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Sorry, I know it's finished, but we'll get into the marriage.
Yeah. So I actually had just met him like maybe a month or so before my contract ended. And so like he actually helped me move from like one apartment to the next one and whatever. And so for that whole year we were like long distance. He was in Seoul, I was here. And so what was the question? Totally got lost.
It's okay, just keep going. You could talk about what happened
Yeah.
then. I'm following. So you
Okay,
met
yeah.
Seoul, Wonju,
Met in Seoul,
yeah.
whatever, was doing my whole thing. But then at this point, I was just kind of like, I heard you while you were recording your other podcast, but everything felt like a chore. Like this situation was so much better. Like I only had 2 schools. My apartment was like huge in comparison to my one room in Moonmok.
Right.
I did have a community. I did have friends. I had access. I had a boyfriend I was like so happy with. But going to work just still felt like a chore. Like I could eventually, like when I got there, like I would be okay. Like I would enjoy it. But it was like literally getting there every day felt like, oh, we have to do this again. And I loved my kids, like absolutely loved my kids.
It's usually never the kids.
And and I loved my like co-teachers. Like I made such a great community in Wonju. Like even in Moonmok, I had teachers that to this day, like they were at my wedding.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it's not like the people, it was just like I did not like push myself through college by myself and pay for all this just to be like teaching, which is not what I had set out to do.
Yeah.
Like if you're a teacher teaching, good, you're doing the thing. But I am not a teacher and I will never claim to be one. And so I just knew I needed to get out of it. So I kind of like settled into the idea that I want to use what I paid for, my education. And so I just like made the mindset like I'm going to apply for jobs in my field. I know they're hard to find. I know there's not that many, but they exist. And so I just kind of set out to look for it. And so I'm a copywriter.
That's what was going to be. What was your job?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've switched companies a bit because this past year has been a little crazy finding the right work environment.
Yeah.
But I'm finally at a company I'm like satisfied with. So I'm working as a copywriter at a marketing agency.
Wow, I love that. I love hearing stories of people leaving from the teaching field, moving into what they want to do as a foreigner. It's important so people like don't feel that you're stuck in the teaching. If that's not what you want to, if you're here and you want to be a teacher, great, more power to you. But if you're like, I love teaching, but it's not my passion, I don't think I have any other options. You do, because I have someone here that is not a teacher anymore. And it was a quick turnaround. She was here 2019 and 2022. She's now a copywriter. So
since 2021. So it was like 2 years.
Good.
I think there's a lot of myths like, oh, I don't have like a F visa. There's nobody who's going to hire me. Like, and that's not true. Like E7 visas are hard to find, but like there is companies that will sponsor you.
Yeah.
And like they don't openly advertise it because it is expensive. It is a liability. There is a possibility it won't work out, but they are able to do it. And the government's like slowly making it easier for them to be given. So I really think people just have to like be looking. Like looking for the job takes time. Not gonna lie. That's
you gotta have
the
the
hardest
mindset.
part.
You gotta find it.
Yeah.
And you can't first closed door, find somewhere else.
Don't say
right?
exactly. Don't just say no, it's not possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. I promise.
Thank you, Lexi. Thanks for sharing that.
Right.
But you did bring up a very important topic that I definitely am going to talk about. So you said in the midst of all of this, moving, blah, 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 you met your now husband. So let's just, again, congratulations. I saw the wedding. It was actually a month ago, maybe?
Yeah, it was literally a month ago.
That's, okay, so Tell us about how that was. How'd you meet?
Yeah.
All the good stuff everybody wants to hear.
Yeah. So we met, and I like telling the story, but like I get worried that people will think about these things like weird. But
Okay.
I used an app called Hello Talk, and I know that's not what it's for, and it's not what I used it for. But I was very serious about it. I used it for almost like 3 years to the point where I finally did meet him.
Yeah.
And obviously I was in like the U.S., not trying to meet people in Korea. But when I came here, and especially during COVID, it was like, what else did I have to do?
No, seriously.
I was like craving human interaction.
Seriously, you were in what is it?
Moonmark.
Yeah. So like
yeah. So I was just chilling, like I
Yeah.
need people to talk to. I literally am going crazy here. And I had like 2 missions, like find social interaction and study Korean, were like my whole motivations that whole first year. And so this was actually, I think in July-ish or June of 2020. And this is like when there's like Black Lives Matter like riots going on in the U.S. And I was just kind of like watching from an outside view, like what is happening to my home, like what is going on there. And so I was just curious. I like asked a question like in Korean, like all Korean people, like please tell me what you think of Black people, because it was just like when you see these things, how are we being reflected? What is this making you feel now? And so I just kind of asked that, and then waited for the responses, and a lot came in. A lot of them were like super stereotypical, but like in a if there's a stereotype we're going to be associated with, I was cool with these ones.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, you guys are good at sports, or like or you guys are really good singers, or you're really good dancers. And I was just like, okay, cool.
This wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah,
Thanks.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then there was TJ, and he was like, people are just people, their skin color doesn't matter. Like you have to get to know them to really make an opinion. And I was just kind of like, okay, answer. Like,
who is this?
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, follow, because you know you can follow their moments, and then they'll show up on your timeline. So I just followed him, and that was it. And then so the next day, he like, or it might have even been the same day, he sent me a message and was just kind of like, oh, I really enjoyed like reading your post. I was wondering like if you want to like just talk more about different topics, blah, blah, blah. My name's TJ, da, 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 da. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so we just started messaging like back and forth. And it was just like super casual, but he was just super chill. Like I think my last day teaching at that school in Moonmok, I wanted to write a letter to my co-teachers, and I was like, can you like check my Korean? And he like fixed it and sent it back to me. And so it was just like, he was just a nice guy. So I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And then so one night we decided to talk on the phone, because I was just like, well, I'm not really practicing Korean. I'm like kind of going back to Papago and cheating my way through this conversation. So we did a phone call, and we ended up talking like that first night, I think like 7 hours. Like it was wild. I was just like,
7 hours.
it was a lot.
But
yeah.
it is like that sometimes.
Yeah. So we ended up like talking all night.
Yeah.
And then like the next day we ended up talking again. And I was just kind of like, okay, he's so easy to talk to.
Yeah.
Like so chill.
Yeah. 7
So
hours is long.
yeah. And so that Saturday I actually had plans to go to Seoul to meet another friend, but that friend canceled on me. So I had already like booked my Airbnb, and I was just like talking like, he's like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, this weekend I plan to go to Seoul, but my friend canceled, so now I think I just need to like cancel my stuff. And he was like, oh, well, like, why don't we meet? We could like get dinner. And so I went to Seoul, and we got dinner, and then after it was like kind of late, so he was just like, all right, well, do you want to like go ahead and go back to your Airbnb, or do you want to go to a cafe and talk some more? And so I was like, let's go to a cafe. And so we went to the cafe, and this was at like 11-ish, like it was getting closer to midnight. And so I thought like, we'll talk a couple hours and we'll go home and go to bed. We talked until I think 8 a.m. because it was a 24-hour cafe.
What are y'all talking about?
Everything.
I have a pod, I'm like 7, but no,
Yeah.
I completely understand. When you meet someone that you guys just vibe and
Exactly.
connect, I get it.
And so we were literally talking all night, and I was just like, oh my God. And so at one point I was like, we're going to be like, we're dying, like we need to go to bed. And so we were just like having a good time, like talking about like all this stuff, like what we've been struggling with the last year, just kind of like opening up to a stranger that felt safe.
Yeah.
And so after like it finally hits like almost 9, and we're like, okay, what do we do? And then he was like, well, how about like you go to sleep, for a couple hours and then we can meet up again. And then I'll go home and blah, blah, blah and get ready and then whatever. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so we went back to our respective places. He went to his, I went to mine. I went to bed for like 3 hours.
Because you were so hyped. Like, is he up yet?
Went to sleep. Well, I had to check out at the Airbnb first of all.
True. You did have a short time.
Yeah,
okay.
So I literally slept, woke up, changed my clothes. What he told me later is he basically went home because he lived on the opposite side. We were like in Gangnam and he had to go back to like Yeongdeungpo, like on the opposite side. So he essentially only had time to like go home, take a shower, change and come back.
Come right back. Wow.
Yeah, and so we ended up spending the whole Sunday together. Like literally, I caught the last bus back to Wonju. And so I was just like, how did we do that? Like, we're literally running on no sleep. And so I was just kind of like, wow. But that's when I started to feel like this isn't normal. Like, friends don't do this. This is a little strange. And then even so I went home and like for my bus, like I said, it goes to Moonmok for 5 seconds. It like stops, you get off, and then it goes to Wonju. And so he was worried that if I fell asleep on the bus, I would miss my stop and have to take like a $30 taxi back to Wonju. So he stayed awake to make sure he could call me about when my stop would come up. And so that was probably like 12:30, getting close to 1 a.m. after we stayed up a whole night.
Him not having any sleep.
Exactly. And so then he stayed on the phone with me while I walked home because I was walking home at 12:31 in the morning. And then we ended up talking, I think, until like 4 a.m.
It bees like that. It bees like that when you meet someone that you guys just immediately connect. Your souls match.
Yeah, so it was just like too much. Like it was just like a very strong connection at once. So we did like kind of unorthodox. Like at this point, we started talking on a Wednesday. This was Sunday. And then so the next day we're like kind of talking and we're like discussing like what was going on there. Like because we were even when I got on the bus, like I felt like he wanted to hug me, but he decided not to like approach me like out of respect. And so I felt that hesitation. So I was just kind of like, I saw that. And so we just kind of like talked about it. And then that's when we decided we would just like try dating each other just to like explore what those feelings were. And then obviously like here we are.
Now you're married.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. I mean, I know that you said I can't believe we spoke for X amount of hours, but when you meet someone, and it doesn't have to be like a relationship, it could just be like a friend. I have friends where I do that weekend thing where it's like, why I just met you, why are we like hanging out so much?
Why are we best friends now?
Yeah, but it's you met your person and it was like, all right, well now we're together now. So how short of a process was it from like, okay, we went on this weekend, whatever you want to call it, right, experience, to dating? Like how long of a process was that?
It wasn't a process. Like literally we decided like that phone call, like we're dating now.
Okay.
It was just kind of like, I'll get to know you while I'm with you.
Got it.
Like,
it's
just
the typical Korean dating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and like it made sense because it's like, why am I getting to know you just so I can say we didn't break up? Like what's the problem with breaking up? If we don't like each other, if we're not right, we'll just stop. And so I was like, okay, well, it's just we're dating now and let's go from there. And so we like got to know each other in the relationship.
And now you're married. How was the wedding? Tell us about.
Oh, the wedding was insane.
It looked beautiful.
Yeah.
You looked beautiful. Everything just looked so good.
It was like, it literally was like the perfect day. Like there was a lot of stress leading up to it because obviously this is Korea. So I couldn't be all the way hands in on the planning process. Like I made all the choices, but the communication like had to go through TJ just because it was like, I don't know what she's talking about. I'm like higher-ish intermediate Korean, but it was just so much stuff that's not like similar to what I thought the American process would be. And then just like the way things are done, I just like, I couldn't get with it. And so I had to rely on TJ, which stressed him out so much. And then like all of this stuff, like coordinating our friends and like my mom who came from the US and just like what I was going to do with her when she got here. And like all that stuff just made me so stressed. My body was so out of whack. And and just like getting ready because we went to the US for our honeymoon, just like preparing for that all like within the same week was so much. But the day of, everything just went how it should. Like we were so terrified it was going to rain because it poured that whole week. And then even the broadcast, like for the whole week leading up to Saturday said rain. And I was just like, why are you like this to me? And so that day it did not rain. Like it literally did not rain. The weather was like not super bright because it was outside, so we were worried people would like burn, but it was overcast, so it wasn't too like intense. It was very humid.
Yeah.
But other than that, like everything was perfect. Like there was no issues.
Oh man, I love that.
And I was just so relieved because I was like, all this planning for over a year was just like coming to fruition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's stressful because my coworker is actually going through that right now.
Yeah.
Like she's getting married and she's similar situation where she's like, I have to go to my fiance to ask him. And like, you know, they're going now to go fly back to the West for the like another wedding that she has with her family. So like she's, everything you're saying, she's told me. So I'm like, I don't even know how you guys are able to deal with all of this. And then still have to put on a happy face. But I know that, like you said, the day of just everything kind of just was like, okay, we're here. Like in the last year,
it all came to fruition.
We're
I was
here.
Just like, yes, thank you.
And now I'm married. I actually had seen your videos, I think, on YouTube. Or was it Instagram?
The couple channel one or
the couple channel one?
Okay.
So I'd seen your videos before, and I was just like, oh, I like, you know, because when you can watch someone's video, like I like this person, like the energy that I get, and I like watch the interaction between you two, and I was like, I like what they have going on here. So I'm glad that you've met your person. Do you think that you guys would stay in Korea? Or I mean, clearly things can change, but as of now, do you see yourself?
That's the plan for now. Like, I have to weigh so many pros and cons, like when I think about the future, because I do very much want to have kids. And just like I know what I went through as a mixed child, like in the U.S., and like I can't get that out of my mind. And like, I hear about like there's this and that kind of prejudice like here in Korea, but like for the most part, like I feel like we can't avoid it. Like I couldn't avoid it in my own country. Like we can't avoid it here. Like I will always be a foreigner. They will always be mixed. Like they'll always be mixed in the U.S. And so it's just kind of like choosing what points you like about where better.
Yeah.
And so when I think about like the violence, the crime, all these different facts, like even just how I felt in the U.S. for the past 2 weeks and just thinking about things I don't have to think about when I'm here.
Right.
It just made me feel like this is the place I need to be for now. Economically, both are a hot mess. Trying to figure out like where's the best financially. Good luck. But just like when I think of who I can raise my kid to be, I do think they'll have a better chance here to be like as well-rounded as I want them to without the outward distractions of these other factors in the U.S.
Yeah, and I actually want to touch on the, you know, the interracial aspect. So clearly, well, not clearly because we didn't verify. Like she's in an interracial relationship. He is Korean.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you don't know where you would definitely raise your kids, but you wouldn't have like any opposition of raising them here.
Yeah.
What are his views on it? Because when I speak to some of my friends that are interracial relationships who are Black or brown, a lot their partners want to raise their child somewhere else, like outside, because they're like, I don't want them to have just a Korean mindset, you know, because we're all Korean here. We're all just, you know, we have the privilege of having so many different cultures that we've experienced. So we're able to kind of like jump in and out of different, you know, places a lot easier.
Right.
Does he have similar views to that, or is it quite different?
I think he's like me. I honestly believe like mindset, you build it into your child. Like nobody chooses to be racist. They're taught it. Like these kinds of thoughts, like they're put into that person. They aren't born that way.
Right.
And so we obviously, like our child will get a different worldview from the get-go. My mom is a foreigner. My dad is Korean. And then like they'll see the differences between them and their friends. Like they'll naturally see that. And that's something that I can teach my child because they will never be safe from discrimination, and I don't want to act like going to America will fix it, because it won't.
No, it won't.
And so when I think about like people talk about, oh well, there's discrimination here, I'm like, oh, yeah, everywhere. That's not something they'll ever get away from, but I think their culture will more definitely be like, you know, diminished in the U.S. because I'm Puerto Rican and Black, and I associate with almost none of it because of just how I was raised. I was raised American, not Puerto Rican, not Black. And so I want to really like preserve those aspects of my child's culture. And like American culture is literally force fed into every country in the world. So I think they can get everything they need here. And TJ feels the same way because again, like he got a worldview. Like he was raised here, but he did do high school in the U.S. Our child can always like get their education in other places, but I do think it's the most beneficial if they're raised here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I get that. And the safety is a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you guys understand. There is a fear. Like, it's not like we wake up every day and we're like, oh, we're fear. But like going back home, the year and a half that I was back home, I wasn't
Anxiety
moving
was
the way I was
high.
moving here in Korea. Like in Korea, it's not like I'm completely obtuse to what's going on, but there is definitely a sense of like, okay, I can put my bag down here and not
walk away
to grab something, right?
There's even shootings in my city like a couple weeks before I went. So I was just like on edge, like I don't want to go downtown. It's past 9 o'clock. Like these kinds of like feelings, like I hated feeling that way.
Yeah.
Because the news is imminent. Like I'm seeing all these things and I just couldn't get out of my head like that this is where I was, which is sad. But yeah.
Well, when do you want to have kids?
I think like 2-ish years, because right now I'm 26, so I'm like relatively young. I'm still like in the middle-ish of my 20s, and so like there's stuff career-wise I want to do. There's stuff like I still want to accomplish before I'm a mom. Luckily with my job, like I have the flexibility, like I can do so many things. Like if I did have a baby next year, because it doesn't work that fast. If I did have a baby next year, like it wouldn't change anything. Like we're remote most of the time. Like I could keep my job, no issues. And so I feel safe knowing my situation is good and I'm like taken care of. But like personally, there's things I want to accomplish here, like in Korea myself, before I have to like switch my focus a little bit.
Baby.
Yeah.
And how were your parents and his parents accepting of the union of you two?
So again, I think it's all just like a fate thing. I think my mom, like my whole life, I've kind of had interracial partners. And I think that was like a given. Like I'm mixed. Nobody is exactly the same as me. And so my mom even asked a question like back when I had a white boyfriend back in the States. She was like, do you think you'll ever date another black guy? And it's like, it's not like I'm not looking at them. It's just if the person who I meet is this way, like that doesn't matter to me.
Right.
And so I think my mom just kind of was like she kind of hoped for it, for me to have a black partner, but she doesn't really understand like how I don't even feel black. Like that wasn't a standard for me.
Yeah,
like I don't need that because I don't feel that.
Right.
And so feel and don't feel. But yeah, I was just kind of like indifferent to it. And so she just kind of got over it when she saw that I really wasn't putting like an ethnicity on my type. I was really like, oh, I like this person.
Yeah.
And so there was no hesitance there. Her hesitance was more so he's here. Like, are you sure you want to be there? What if you guys, like, thinking of all the worst case scenarios? What happens if you have a baby and you get divorced? And I was like, Mom,
yeah, that's how moms work. Though,
I was like 0 to 100. Yeah.
I get the thought, but it's like, Mom.
Yeah. Calm down. But yeah, that was just her. Like, will I be taken care of? Will I be okay? And then his parents were like zero hesitation because his dad is just very, I feel like, open-minded. And then his mom was even, do you know KIP?
No.
It's like,
KIP, the placement program?
Exactly. His mom was a teacher for that. And so she had a lot of experience with foreigners. And she even like said, and I thought it was like the sweetest thing, she was like, I think God was preparing me to have you as a daughter-in-law.
Why did that give me goosebumps?
I was just like, oh my God, like how could you say something so sweet? And so it was just like his parents are literally the sweetest parents-in-law I could have ever asked for. Our relationship is amazing. And so I feel so loved and like so supported here in Korea. So,
and I also I'm glad that you mentioned his parents, because a lot of people have this mindset like, oh, they're like Korean parents, they're not going to be accepting of someone that's
not always the
a person of color, and it's really not always. I've heard clearly there are going to be the opposite side. There's always going to be people, and even if you date someone of the same race, like parents are going to hate. Like sister-in-laws are going to hate brother-in-laws. Like there's always going to be like issues, but that's not always going to be like the definite of like, okay, you're dating a Korean person as a person of color. You're probably not going to be accepted because you're a person of color. Like that's a facade. It's a lie. And again, another person here that can actually say, listen, I have, but also wait, your mother-in-law speaks English?
No. I speak
Oh,
100% Korean to both of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which helps.
Yeah.
That also helps. Yeah. So if you do actually
you can
want to be
communicate with
accepted,
them,
if
they'll
you can,
probably like you.
Don't. I mean, Papa Go, I'm sure they'll understand. But if you can actually speak to them, that's going to definitely improve their like view of who you are.
Because they can actually get to know you.
Yeah.
You're not just like depending on your partner to translate the whole relationship.
Yeah.
Like there's no relationship in that.
Okay, actually, then I want to ask the question. So, did you have any friends from back home come to the wedding? Like,
Yeah,
your
I had
family?
a couple. It was like, there was like a list of people who were like, we're set, we're going, we're coming. And it was just like situational stuff that kind of got in the way. Like one friend got a government account, so she had a government issued computer given to her, so she couldn't travel abroad. Like that kind of stuff. Like
Such
it
a
was
random,
right.
a
It was
random
just
reason not to. Okay,
right,
yeah.
because it's like since she works from home, like she
Yeah.
thought, oh, I'll just take the computer to
Right.
Korea and work
But it's
there, and
not.
it's like you can't do that with government
Yeah.
issued stuff.
Yeah,
And so
that
stuff
makes
like
sense.
or just like maybe somebody's finances like fell through because life happens and it's
Corona. We're in the middle of a pandemic,
and it's
you
a
gotta
big
hold on.
financial
Just the flight is pretty
the
expensive.
flight,
Yeah.
the hotel,
Yeah.
the activities,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Like it costs money. So nobody was ever going to hurt me by saying they couldn't come.
Right.
Because it was a big thing to ask.
Mhm.
And so that was why the live stream was so important to me, because I was like, I know people who want to be here and just they can't. And so that was the main reason that was set up.
Yeah.
Like we will have like the proper wedding video made too, but I just wanted to make sure people could be with me like in that moment.
Yeah.
So
And you had your
Yeah.
mom, honestly. If you have
Yeah.
mom or like one or two people from the fam, you're like,
Yeah.
I'm good. Did you have
Yeah.
any friends that you've made from here?
I
know
had
you mentioned
so
the
many
teachers and
friends.
stuff.
Yeah, it was crazy because like my father-in-law like translated this one sentence so he could say it to my mom like in the speech he made, and he was like, well, it doesn't have to be perfect, there's not gonna be that many people here. And I was like, oh, like my foreigner friends are gonna be quite numerous.
Yeah.
And so even people at the wedding were like, we've never seen a wedding like this, like there were so many like foreigners and
Yeah.
Koreans and blah 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 blah.
Beautiful.
And so yeah, like we really had like the multicultural of weddings. Like we had our 2 MCs, and so I just really felt like we could combine like the 2 cultures into one.
I was gonna say, it feels like it was just like a blending of. I mean, that's what a marriage is.
Exactly.
It's literally the union of 2 people coming together. Towards the end of every podcast, I like to ask a few questions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just pull up my questions here.
Uh,
All right. So some of these are going to be Korean-based questions. Some of them are not, just
Okay.
because I don't think we all need to center everything around Korea, because you are a person before you came here. All right. So quick question. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Of all time. Oh
Yes.
my gosh. Oh, it's difficult. Panic.
First one that comes to your mind. Go. Rapid fire.
The Lion King.
Oh!
I know that's not true
No,
anymore,
no,
but it
no,
just
no.
came out.
You know what? And I know it's the original Lion King and not that
No,
reboot
not the
crap that
Beyonce
they tried
one.
to.
Yeah.
What is going? Okay, I'm not gonna get off topic.
Or maybe I'll say The
What?
Greatest Showman. Not because I think like the storyline is all that great, but like the
it's so
emotion
good.
certain songs conveyed in me, I think was
Never
like, really,
enough.
that one, and then like the tightrope song when the mom's singing about like her relationship with her husband. Na, 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 na. I don't remember how it goes, but she's like, was
don't
it
even
after or
remember.
before the cheating? But I don't know. She was just kind of like showing like how she gave up everything, like even her dad's relationship, to like be with her husband and chose him. And like just like the emotion that conveyed for me, it was just
okay.
like,
I vaguely remember that
yeah,
song.
for me that one kind of
Greatest
hit.
Showman.
And then also Never Enough, of course. But yeah,
Never enough. I still have on my playlist
Yeah.
right now. Great. So you're a musical
I
person.
love musicals.
Me too.
Oh my
As
gosh.
soon as you said Lion King and then you said Greatest Showman, I was like, okay, so she's a musical person.
Yeah, it was-
Hairspray is my like top
Really?
top tier.
I think it's so cute, but yeah.
Hairspray is my top tier. I love Greatest Showman though. That's a really good one, and I do like the I Am Me, because that just gives me like
Oh yeah.
come out. I'm like, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna play
Just
this
so many
song.
of those songs, like
Yeah.
I feel it the minute I hear it. Yeah.
I love it. Next. So you are here in Korea, you are creating content, you have a YouTube channel. If there's someone that you would like to collaborate with, could be someone that is a content creator or not, just somebody you follow, who would you like that person to be?
I would have to say Megan Moon, because she's somebody I kind of like looked to for inspiration when I was like questioning different phases in my journey to Korea, and just like the life she's made here, who she's become, all the things she wanted to do and accomplish. Like she wanted to be a muscle, what was it called? Like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And so she did that. And
Yeah.
like she won competitions.
Yeah.
Like she just set her mind to things and she did it. And so I really love that about her, and I'd love to like
I mean, I
meet with her.
love that too, because it's very much, she says this is what I want, and I'm going to do
and
it.
she does it.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, good answer. Megan Moon, if you're going to watch. You are going to see this because we speak it out to the universe, and it's going to happen.
Hi, Megan.
All right. And for the next 5 years, I know you said in the next year, maybe 2 years, that you'd like to have children. But in the next 5 years, zoom that out. What do you see yourself doing, growing your business?
Yeah, so I
career?
want to build my personal brand. Like,
Yeah.
I realize, like, I don't have, like, a dream job because, like, it's not my... I've seen, like, this quote, like, I do not have a dream job because I do not dream of labor. Like, you know, I want to live my life for me. So I want to be able to financially sustain myself while I do the things I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And so, like, building those channels, like, building my social accounts, you know, building the YouTube channel to be something more, because that's what I like doing versus what I have to do to survive. And so just kind of taking those and running with them and making something out of it.
And you will, because I can tell you have the mindset that you're going to eventually figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Last question. Will you possibly come back on the Sobe podcast to have another one?
I would love
to. Maybe we can bring your husband. Maybe we can do something else. Maybe we can, you know, we'll play with this thing here. But would you? This is an open invite.
Oh, I'm totally into
All
it.
right, cool.
Yeah, I'll try to give him a pep talk because he gets camera shy.
We don't need. We could just be you and I for a part 2.
Yeah, I'm so down. Thank you
right.
so much.
Lexi, you're welcome. Now, Lexi, this is your turn. If you'd like to say anything, speak into that camera, anything that you'd like to promote, and go for it.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I do have 2 YouTube channels, but I'm currently growing my own, which is under the name Live Live. No, it's not. What is it?
I don't know.
Liv.Korea.Lex. Okay, either live or live. So Liv.Korea.Lex.
I'll add it here. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I'll
and then
add
you can follow me at Instagram at LEXCPOP, Lexi Pop. And yeah, just look forward to new content that I will be creating for the next forever. Let's go.
for the rest of my life. Thank you so much, Lexi. I'm going to close it out. Again, it's me, Keeds. You can follow me on at Miss Keeds or on the podcast at the Sobe Pod. Again, thank you so much, Lexi, for coming in, taking your time, enjoying.
Thank you so much for
thank
having
you for
me.
inspiring for the people that I know you will. Bye, guys.
Bye.
And also, Benito.
You're super natural at this.
Oh
my gosh. Like, even the ones where you're doing by yourself, like, people don't realize how hard it is to talk by yourself for such a long time.
I know, right? That's also, I'm literally in my room talking to myself. I